Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, very excited about today's episode. We are talking to Sanford Greene about his excellent new series, Bitter Root. Bitter Root is co-written by Chuck Brown and David Walker. David and Sanford, excellent work on Power Man and Iron Fist. They continue their incredible work in this new Image series, Bitter Root, a monster hunting series that takes place during the 1920s Harlem Renaissance. Very interesting stuff, very cool mythology, and it's almost a trend of the episodes I'm releasing today on Word Balloon, because in addition to my conversation with Sanford, I've also got Eric Esquivel, who's doing Border Town, which is also a monster hunter book, and it really delves into Mexican mythology. And it's interesting, Sanford and Eric in these conversations talk about the importance of differentiating monster hunter books and what can you lean into. And in both cases, they lean into their own culture and their own culture's mythology. Very interesting conversation with Sanford Greene. We also talk about his webtoon series, The Thousand. Very excited about it to present it to you on today's Word Balloon. Word Balloon is brought to you by Lightning Strike Comics, the Irish comic publisher, behind such titles as The Life and Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Prince Valiant's 80th Anniversary Magazine, Highlander, the commemorative movie magazine, and many more. They're pleased to announce a new series, The Phantom Strikes, featuring the art of Alex Saviuk and new original stories by David Williams. The Phantom Strikes will also feature contributions by artist Mike Collins and many more. To order copies, you'll want to visit www.lightningstrikecomics, that's singular, lightningstrikecomics.com. Retailers can make bulk orders by emailing info@lightningstrikecomics.com. Lightning Strike has also teamed up with the longest-running Phantom comic publisher, Fruit Comics, to offer you more titles featuring The Ghost Who Walks, including for younger audiences Kid Phantom #1 and the trade paperback of The Phantom's earliest stories. For those who came in late, others titles such as the award-winning creator-owned anthology series Lightning Strike Presents is also available online at their website, lightningstrikecomics.com. It's also all available digitally at Comixology now. In the coming days, we're going to be talking to one member of the Phantom Strikes team, David Williams. We'll also have a conversation in the weeks ahead with Alex Saviuk. Alex is just bombarded with deadlines and conventions, and I'm sure David is busy too, but we're going to talk to both of those guys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a huge Phantom fan, and the Phantom is in good hands with Lightning Strike Comics. Check it out today. Go to their website, lightningstrikecomics.com. All right, let's get into our conversation now with Sanford Greene. Really excited to have Sanford back to talk about Bitter Root, a brand new series with him, Chuck Brown, and David Walker. Here's our conversation with Sanford Greene on today's Word Balloon. Sanford Greene, welcome back to Word Balloon. Always a pleasure. And this is we've been talking about this for a little while now, so I'm glad we're finally talking and doing what we need to for Bitter Root.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me back.
It's always a pleasure, man. And I'm always happy to see you and David Walker working together. And I think you guys have found an incredible rhythm. And there's a lot of kinship to this, to what you guys were doing in Power Man and Iron Fist.
Well, thank you. I think, we wanted to, ride the momentum that we had with Power Man and Iron Fist. Once we saw where things were headed in terms of what the direction was going to be with separating Luke and Danny in the Marvel Universe again, we knew that we needed to try to make some moves ourselves, not necessarily to separate, but to take what we were doing there, because we had a lot of great ideas that we wanted to bring to the Power Man and Iron Fist mythos, but we decided to, the run is about done, and we wanted to take those ideas and use them for our own creations. And so that's part of how Bitter Root got started.
Well, I love it, man. I first of all, you and Rico Renzi, man. I mean, it's a gorgeous book. It's very well done. You're always on the top of your game, but Rico's colors too. Really, I mean, it's a It's a beautiful book.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, this is our first foray into the creator-owned universe. Well, not officially, but definitely from an extent to where it's a lot more realized. And we wanted to put our best foot forward. And of course, that's with any creator, they would want to do that. But I think for us, I did some painstakingly attempts to make sure that every page was, my best effort. And, I guess you hear this all the time, but I think for me, I really felt like I could walk away from the issue feeling like I gave it my all. There's times where you work on a project and you feel like if I only had a little more time, or, I wish I could have done this or that. But with this project, I think at least for right now, I feel good about it. I can walk away and I can let my kids go now. I feel at peace.
That's cool. Are you guys doing the typical image rhythm of 5 issues, then the trade, kind of a month, at least a month off, and then you come back and then do another volume? What's the plan?
Yeah, that's exactly the plan, to do 5 issues and then trade it up and then jump back into the next arc. Excellent.
Tell me about the third collaborator here, because it's you, David, and Brown. And forgive me, I'm not looking at my cheat sheet to give me Mr. Brown's full name there.
Well, yeah, it's probably the easiest name out of all of us. His name is Chuck. So you can't go
Chuck
wrong.
Brown.
Yeah. Chuck Brown. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that name. But yeah, he was honestly kind of the spark to this whole idea. He reached out to me. We actually collaborated on a project at Dark Horse called Rotten Apple. And this was back in about 2013, somewhere around that time. And he had already started to do some other work. I think he just recently did some work over at. He's doing something else at Dark Horse right now that's not announced yet. But he's done some Marvel work, some Punishers stuff during the Civil War II. Story, that storyline, and he's done some other stuff. He's also worked with me on 1000. I think we talked about my project 1000.
Absolutely,
back,
you did.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So we've been working together now for some time. I've known him for a long time. He's a great writer, great ideas. He's definitely one of those guys that. You think about some of these new creators these new voices that are starting to show their wares, if you will, in these new series, especially at Image. You get these unique voices, and he's one of those voices that we felt would be great to put out there on a project like this, because again, he initiated the idea, but David came along and really started to, form the idea and get it structured to where we could make it something that we can actually do as a series. But yeah, he's been doing a great job. Both of those guys, they bounce back and forth. I kind of attuned them to like a Abnett Lanning combo, or someone like even Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray. Those like those guys, they tend to play off well with each other, and I think David and Chuck, that's what they're doing right now.
Great first issue, man. Can I read the forward that's on the title page and everything? Because this might help people with an idea of what Bitterroot is all about. So it says, since the dawn of civilization, a great evil has plagued humanity. And forgive me, I don't have my glasses here. It has taken man, it's taken many forms and gone by different names. The demon, the monster, etc. So then let's see here. No matter, I suck. No matter the name, the result has always been the same. The corruption of human souls for generations. The surprising, is it the sanguine laugh has fought to save and. Boy, this is terrible. Seriously, man, this is like fourth grade all over again. You got a better read on it than I do?
Do you want to do a take two on that one? On that?
That's a good. No, but you know something? I'm going to leave in you suggesting it just because it's hilarious, and I like it. So anyway, here.
Man, let's do a take two on that.
All right, here we go. Man. No, you know something? Sure. I don't know. I tapped the page, and now it's much cleaner. Since the dawn of civilization, a great evil has plagued humanity. It's taken many forms and gone by different names. I'm just scrolling. The demon, the monster, the Jinnu. I don't know what the Jinnu is. You might have to explain that. No matter what the name, the result has always been the same. The corruption of human souls for generations. The Sangaire family.
Sangrier.
Sangrier family. Thank you. I'm assuming very Creole. Sounds kind of Creole. Sangrier family has fought to save and purify the souls of the Jinnu. Humans consumed by hate, infected by evil, and transformed into monstrous creatures. Mm-hmm. And the family thought they were winning the war. They were wrong. Mm-hmm. All right, there you go. And so this takes place in the 20s.
Yep.
And so what is the Jinnu?
The Jinnu is David and Chuck. They're going to kill me because we have several different levels of this monster infection. Okay, and the Jinnu, they're kind of. Let's see if I can backtrack here. So basically, the Sangrier family, their purpose or their mission is to hunt and ultimately cure those who've been infected, because they've been entrusted with this ancient technique called bitterroot. And without going too far into that rabbit hole, basically that technique was bestowed upon the matriarch of this family during the Underground Railroad. So we'll kind of just leave that there. So there's a little backstory even in that standpoint, because we thought it would be really cool to really hit some monumental moments in history, even more specifically in African American history or just African history in general.
Sure.
And use that to create these fantastical aspects of our story. So the technique was bestowed upon the matriarch of the family. At the time, she was just a little child, but she migrated up north. Her and a few others, they started a family together, the Sangrier family, and basically trained everyone, the sons, the daughters, nieces, nephews, all the above. They were all trained with this technique, and there's different levels to the technique. Okay, they use alchemy, which is the most ancient of the technique for bitterroot. But there were also, as the family grew, they grew in the stature and their understanding of what this technique can really do. They began to implement technology. And this is even more specifically, they wanted to implement steampunk technology. So they used steampunk technology and alchemy to basically advance what they're doing. And so long story short, they are now this pretty impressive agency, if you will. Just happens to be a family that their goal is to deal with this evil, because this evil has been around again since the dawn of time. And what they've done again, right around the time period of our story, where our story starts, there's a cataclysmic event that has taken place right before the time period that we're the story takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go too far into that because that's something I would love for the readers to be able to
Sure.
see. And it's actually an event that is historical. It's an actual event that did take place.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're using that as kind of a conduit to why this family and their philosophy is now being challenged to the core, because ultimately they are their core belief is, or the core mission is to save. They hunt, they capture, and they save as many as they can because of this infection. But because of this event that took place, it basically split the family because of what took place. The family, or at least half of the family or a portion of the family, felt like because of their original philosophy, that's why the event happened. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the family is torn. So you got basically one half that now believes a different way. There's a different way that we have to go about dealing with these monsters. Whereas you have the other side of the family that believes, okay, we still have to stay the course. So there's that
schism. Yeah.
Great schism. Exactly. So it just makes for a great, because that's almost kind of the underlying story. And it honestly is a philosophy that's not just, that takes place with this family, these two different philosophies, is honestly the two types of philosophies that we see even in our culture, even today.
Yep.
So that is something that we really got excited about, because we knew that, okay, there's a million stories about monster hunting, and all these different, titles that are coming out right now at Image, and it has some type of monster aspect to it. We got a little discouraged when we saw how many titles were, being debuted over the next, 2 or 3 months. But we knew that we had several elements that really could help our story stand out. And that part of what of our story is something that we really feel is a fresh take on this whole aspect of the monster hunting. Is almost kind of like the show, like The Walking Dead, or even the comic Walking Dead, where it's a zombie book to some degree, but it's really not a zombie book. It's about the people. And that's kind of sort of how we're, taking our approach with Bitterroot.
No, you can see the metaphor, and I think you've explained it well, and that is it. In terms of how do you deal with these societal problems? Do you stay the course, or are along with the times changing, are the problems changing, and do you have to change your methods to deal with them? And like you said, it's in the family, and I love the idea that you're tying this stuff to historical moments, especially historical moments in African and in American African American history, because I think that there's a lot of room, I think, to tell stories in those, and tell monster stories using those touchstones, that I think does make it unique and absolutely that much more interesting. So I appreciate your guys' storytelling instincts. I think you guys are definitely onto something. And like I said, man, it's for people who only know your collaboration with Dave on Power Man and Iron Fist. Like I said, you're gonna see a lot of similarities in a good way, and this family is very much a very cool new group of characters. And honestly, I was going to ask how much of the mythology is you guys inventing it, and are there other ties to other African American or other African or cultures of color mythologies that you're tying into this? Because I kind of get that, and I wondered if, like I said, the name of the family and everything sounded kind of Cajun, and I wondered if kind of the New Orleans kind of influence. Yeah. There you go.
Well, and it's all the above, to be honest with you. Cool. We're tying in everything that goes as far back as to early African culture, but that's world building down the road, kind of different stories that we want to bring in. But we have back matter that we're going to produced in each issue that's exclusive to the single issues, that gives you the bigger worldview of the Sangrier family and just the world in general. And then we're going to also tap into some of the historical aspects of just history in general as part of the back matter for almost academic purposes, because we felt like, we can really make this something really special for those who are just curious from a different angle of, they're dealing with a certain time period that is historically, very significant. And we want to, make sure that we capitalize on that, because there are scholars, there are other academic types that have already reached out to us because they've heard just through various types of interviews or promotional deals that we've encountered. We've been also reached out to by a lot of scholars who would love for us to come and speak on the Harlem Renaissance time period, which that's the core of the story during that time period. And again, we're doing all of this intentionally because we want to give as rich, not only just a rich story, but just really give you that history that goes along with this other side, which is the fantastical aspect of it. So it's a little bit of both of the fantastical versus the historical. And we've done some research when we first started to put this idea together about this time period, the Harlem Renaissance time period. And, there's a lot of different documentaries or and other essays, but nothing quite like this, and definitely nothing that has a fantastical element to it. We looked hard, and I'm quite happy to say that there's nothing out there like that, at least not anything that I've seen. And again, it's pretty exciting because we're starting something, and there's a million comics out right now, and it's one of those things where it's like you go to the comic shop and you're like, oh man, this is awesome and kind of overwhelming and maybe even a little depressing at the same time, because you just don't know where to start. Everything that seems kind of, it's not all the same, but you just don't know where to start. And I think for us, we even with that, and I guess we can, I can share a little later about some of our approaches and how we're getting this actual comic out to different audiences. But yeah, I mean, long story short, we are definitely very keen on bringing in historical, and it's not going to be historical people or places and events. We will talk about them in a way to where we're gonna give you nuggets of it, to where you as a reader will want to, one, ask more questions, or two, maybe even get into discussions about it with other readers. Like, wow, I think they may be talking about this historical person. We may not necessarily say the name or spell that out to you, because that's one thing we don't want to do. We don't want to hit you over the head with information. But what we want to do is give you nuggets. Now, the back matter, that's going to kind of take care of that to some degree, but the story itself is going to give you those nuggets.
I hear you, man. Yeah, well, it's like, it's like telling home front stories during World War II. And, Hitler's may not be there, but, it's in the background or whatever. And that's obviously a very negative example. But, I get it. And truly, the Harlem Renaissance is something that I've always heard about. I haven't read much about it. And, so I imagine it is people that are living through this without actually being on the front lines of some of the great events. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. No, I think that's great. And yeah, like you said, how many other examples of that look and to add that level of mythology and fantastic storytelling during that period? I think that's brilliant. And I honestly, I really, it's very exciting. And I got a sense of that from the issue. Now, you sent me the issue without the back matter, and that's okay, because it gives me a reason to buy the issue and read the back matter as well. No, honestly, man, and truly, that's the great thing. Then I think a lot of the current books that are hitting, in some ways, familiar genres, this is the way to stand out. Is
right.
I mean, this is exactly what, like, Kelly Sue and Val Delandro are doing with, like, Bitch Planet and stuff. And it's like, okay, the back matter and their perspective, is separating it from the other kind of stories like that have been told in the past. And I think that's great. And again, it's it's not really genre splicing, because again, well, it kind of is, because you're doing, kind of, again, a historical setting. These are like those, I remember they used to have the, John Jakes was a great historical fiction writer of the 70s and 80s, and he would write about the revolutionary times. But, it was just a family that was living through the revolution. Patrick Henry and George Washington weren't characters in the story. So, yeah, I think that this is great, man. No, I really, I like the idea, and I like the execution.
Oh, thank you. And, the elevator pitch pretty much is BPRD set in Harlem.
There you go.
It's technically, I'm a huge fan of Mike Mignola, Hellboy, and just kind of just to add to that, it was such an incredible blessing to have Mike do one of the variant covers for the first issue.
Fantastic.
Just to have him to, share this quick story. I reached out to him. I mean, I told a few folks. I told Eric Stevenson at Image that I got Mike to do a cover for us, and he was like, "Wait a minute!" And if you know Eric is very, I love him. You're about to say something a little off color when you segue by saying I love him, or but it's like Eric he's not. You just don't know exactly what he's thinking or feeling, because he's he keeps it on a certain level.
Sure.
And he's just professional. But, I couldn't get a read for him for when I take that back. He was definitely excited about the initial story. But, he's extremely busy. He's got a million other titles he has to oversee and the company itself. But, I reached out to him to ask him about the variant cover aspect of the issues, and he said, "Oh, sure. What do you have in mind?" And I told him, "Well, I got Mike Mignola to do a cover for us," and he called me. He just called me out of the. He's like, "Dude, you got Mike really?" He was super excited, and I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "We've been trying to get him to do stuff, and he just doesn't do stuff for people." And I was just like, it was just so weird to me, because I was like, really? He was like, "How did you get him to do the cover?" And I was like, I asked him, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't, now, mind you, we've had this rapport over the last couple of years, and, I just don't, what's the point of talking about that to people? I know him. We're not like best friends or anything, but we would have these cordial conversations. And I've heard different stories about, his, I guess, interactions with people. Yeah. But it's always been very pleasant. And honestly, just, again, it's like we would have great conversations about just art. He would ask me about, what I'm working on, and he'll show me some stuff that he's working on. I'm like, this is crazy that he's Mike Mignola. But, and that's honestly kind of where I just asked him. I was like, he would be perfect for the first issue. One of the artists anyway.
Sure.
And so that's, that's how that came about. But yeah, I mean, getting, I know that sounds so
No,
some people are like, yeah, it's just like, how did you do that? People
man.
still don't believe it's that easy. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. I just happened to be very fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time. He was in the right mood. I don't know. I mean, just that's kind of how it all transpired. But again, definitely just an absolute. It's an incredible gem to be able to have him bless us with one of those covers, along with the other incredible artists.
Who else did the variants? And then we'll gush about Mignola a little bit more.
For issue 1, I mean, there's a lot more artists we can gush about, man. We've been very fortunate to have kind of an incredible Hall of Fame, list of artists from different eras, if you will. We got Dennis Cowan on
Excellent.
issue 1 as well.
Fantastic.
And again, there's another one of my heroes coming up from the Milestone times, and just realizing who he was and realizing, oh wow, he's an artist who's Black, and that gave me inspiration as a kid or as a younger guy, and
Sure.
made me, it just made me have belief that I can actually be in this industry. And then we have issue 1 as well. We have Brittany Williams. She is an incredible artist that she did some work on Patsy Walker Hellcat. It was like the latest run of that.
Okay.
And she's in animation now. But what we were trying to go for in each issue is we wanted to get, and again, this is all intentional. We wanted to get some Hall of Fame legendary illustrators and some illustrators of color, especially women. And each issue has artists like that. And we're just elated to have the talent be a part of this. And again, each artist, they've all been very supportive and excited. And a lot of these guys and gals, they could be doing other things. They could be pursuing other projects, but we're very fortunate to have them take a little time out and give us a good look.
I'm glad, man, because again, I think people are only becoming more and more aware of David's writing and your art, and truly, man, and seriously, ever since you gave me that sketchbook a couple of years ago and stuff, and I just saw all the different styles plus the 1000. And I honestly, Sanford, I gush about your art all the time, and and absolutely, man, because it's terrific and it's exciting, and I'm glad that you are getting both the opportunities at Marvel to do your thing, but also that you and David are doing this creator-owned book, because I think it's the right time, and I think it's the right. Again, based on what I've read in the first issue and everything, no, I think it's a great subject matter, and I'm not. It doesn't surprise me, and I bet Mignola really, obviously, I think probably respects your art and everything too. So he's not going to do it for just anybody. I bet Dennis feels the same way, and I understand, man. Those are two of the greats of the last 30 years, and it's so that's terrific, and also to pass the baton on and bring other people up to, that are newcomers or younger creators, giving them the opportunity to kind of show their stuff too. No, I mean, that's the thing, man. I really think, and again, I always have to put the preface of the middle-aged white man's perspective that I represent. But seriously,
you're not middle-aged, and you're sometimes I don't know if you're white. I don't know.
Thanks, man. No, I appreciate
Hispanic,
that.
I'm just joking, man. I get it. John, I listen to your podcast at least once a week, and you throw that reference in about the middle-aged white man, and I'm like, the more he says that, the more I think he truly believes that he's not middle-aged. Like he's trying to convince himself that he's not middle-aged.
Well,
I'm not.
I'm
It's
young
that reverse psychology. I don't know.
Well, I got to be honest with you. You know who one of my guys that I'm like, God, you're still excited about comics? Calvin Reed from Publishers Weekly. I love talking to Calvin, and Calvin's like, 10 or 15 years older than me.
Right, right.
And it's like, damn, comics are happening now because, sometimes I'll talk to some of the older creators and maybe they just got jaded making the donuts. But, you talk to a Paul Levitz or the late, great Len Wein, and I would, ask them, I'm like, so what are you reading now? And it's like, whatever I need to, to kind of get the job done and stuff. But it just seems like the joy of new comics, at least, when I ask, it didn't seem to be there for some of these guys. And I haven't really asked many of the classic creator women their point of view. But that's the thing, man. I really think, and again, my point was going to be that when people stood up and said, something, we want more women in comics and we want more people of color in comics, it's like, yeah. Like we're all like, yeah, man, that sounds great because new voices are only going to go in new directions and come with a different perspective. And that's why. That's what I really think Bitter represents in terms of, again, what I've read in this first issue. And it's like, yeah, go, keep going. Seriously, like this is great. And again, it brings a new energy to the market and they're distinct books. And it's like, yeah, let this happen. So no, I'm thrilled. And, I want to say, I'll say it's funny because you said in terms of Mexican or whatever, I'm Greek. And I'll tell you, the matriarch of the family reminds me of my grandmother, and swear to God, this is true. Greeks we have our own mythology, and I don't mean like the classics like Hercules and all that stuff.
Right.
My aunt who just passed away, she had like a hex put on her in her neighborhood when she was a little girl.
Oh wow!
And my grandmother knew how to take the hex off. And she really got like, somebody gave her, we call it mati, but basically it's like the evil eye, basically.
Okay.
And she was getting, she was throwing up, but she had a fever and they didn't know what to do. The doctor's like, I don't know what's wrong with her, whatever, give her Pepto or whatever back in the 20s. And my grandmother like ground up some herbs and, put a little salve on her. She had like an extended stomach from it and everything. Put this like, tape these rags with these soaked herbs on rag-soaked herbs on her chest, and rattled off some Greek incantations. And the next morning, my aunt felt 100% better.
Wow, I think every nationality, I can't even get the word out of my mouth. Yeah. Every the background. Of our nationalities are similar in that respect, that there's some type of folklore or even mythos, if you will, that we kind of came up in our culture that has allowed us to have, some similar perspectives on things that, may not necessarily be physical, more spiritual, or something on those levels. And again, all that stuff that you're talking about is, I had grandmas and aunties. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and that is kind of the staple of that culture growing up. If you're sick, or if you were or whatever, you or if you had some type of cut or bruise or what have you, there was some remedy, some herb, some type of concoction that you take this and rub it on there or drink it or whatever, and you would you should feel okay shortly after. So a lot of what we put in the story has a lot of the cultures, our upbringing, kind of embedded in that. So again, it makes it authentic.
That's outstanding, man. No, I love it. And yeah, did you guys ever did anyone in your culture ever do like they take teacups and they kind of create suction by like burning a little paper and it causes, the oxygen to go away. You guys did that too? We had it in Greek, it was called venduzas. That's what we called it. Had no idea. And seriously, like, I remember my dad being sick, and my aunt remembered how my grandmother did it and stuff. And she's like, Jim, I could do Van Duzes if you want. And he left, and he said, hey, at this point, I'll try anything.
Wow.
And there's also, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but The Madness of King George. They have a very extreme version of that. And seriously, it looks like torture in that movie, where they have these, like, they almost look like light bulbs. They're these, like, glass globes. And they light, a little paper and stuff to make the suction happen. He's got them all over his back. And seriously, it looks like something out of Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, it is so torturous looking. And I remember watching it with my father. He's like, Van Duzes, look at that, man.
Wow. It sounds like you should jump on that and write a graphic novel, man. I think you got something going there, man. Hey, you're Greek is part of your heritage, so you're able to. You can make it authentic. That's what we're doing. We're just
that's hilarious.
Going off of the things that we heard, as kids in our heritage. But kind of going a little back, you made a comment about different voices and now being the time. I think that's part of why we were so excited about this. Is a major part of it is that. We're three Black creators working on a predominantly Black story, a comic with characters. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I could be mistaken, but I was talking to someone about this at New York Comic Con. I think that Image hasn't produced something like this with the creative team and the story all being, people of color. Hadn't done anything like that since Tribe. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember that. Tribe. Yes, it did. Yes,
yeah, yeah. So, we're talking 20 plus years ago, maybe longer, 25 years ago. And, that's a little telling to think that, especially with creator owned, you would think there would be more opportunities and stuff like that. And again, I could be mistaken, but at least to my knowledge, I have not really seen anything, at least from a creator owned level, specifically at Image that's, had every, aspect of it is of color.
Yeah.
I don't get me, or other voices like women. We have our editor is Heather Antos, who used to be.
Yes.
Yeah. So having
explain. Yeah, tell people, because if they don't know who Heather is, absolutely.
Well, Heather. Well, you want to know a really funny story about this whole thing, because
sure.
Heather, she's incredible. She's an awesome. Editor, and she was an editor over at Marvel for a lot of the Star Wars properties, and we got her to be a part of this. This is how much in the dark I am. Well, I shouldn't say I'm in the dark. I choose to tune out this noise. It's just noise.
But go on.
There was this, I guess, I don't know, chatter that when we announced her as our editor, going around on the internet, and then a friend of mine, he hit me up and said, hey, you got Heather to be your editor. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. Well, she's been, for lack of a better word, she's been cyber bullied. And
yes.
in full disclosure, Heather is so awesome that I don't think you can really cyber bully her because she can come back pretty quick. She's fearless in that regard, but still, nonetheless, having, some really outlandish things said about her. And I knew about it, but I didn't know specifically who they were targeting, and found out it was her. And I'm like, wow, even more interesting that she's with us on this book, and so we're, that's going to be that's already a perfect storm, if you will. So
Agreed. Well, and if I may, I'll just add a little bit to it in terms of when everyone got mad. Well, I should say when people of a certain point of view, there were a bunch of Marvel editors. They wanted to toast the passing of Flo Steinberg. They went out and had milkshakes, and a bunch of jerks decided that as opposed to recognizing that it was just a tribute to a great voice at Marvel and a very important person, certainly for women to rally behind at Marvel and stuff, decided to be jerks about it and say, get back to work and everything. And you're right. Heather was really the target for a lot of that, and just really nasty crap. And that nobody deserves to deal with. She she left Marvel. And I'm glad that even though she's doing fine, and she is doing great, she's doing great in gaming, and I'm glad that she's keeping her hand in editing and is willing to come back. And it's a nice FU to those jerks. And it's like, yeah, guess what? Still in comics, and look at the book I'm working on. and yeah, that's awesome, man. No, seriously, I'm glad that you know. So did David reach out? Who reached out to Heather?
Actually, David did. David reached out to her. Yeah.
Had he worked with her before?
And I think he had, and it's funny because I think we were supposed to work on something, and that didn't transpire because of whatever that took place at Marvel. So but now we're together. So
terrific.
We're making it happen for sure.
That's awesome, man. No, that's great. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I did notice that Heather was part of the team and everything. Clayton Powell's doing the lettering.
Clayton, yes. Cool. Award winning, and of course you mentioned Rico earlier. So we got some strong talent for sure.
Absolutely, man. No, this is great, and you were telling me off the air that you're well ahead of schedule and everything. You're working on issue 4.
I'm laughing at that because I guess that's kind of relative. In my head, I think I'm so far behind. I'm just falling apart at the seams when it comes to the deadlines, and I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm in a decent place. It's not bad, but it's my neuroses kicking in. It's like I should be more, farther ahead. I should have more done, and but I think we're okay right now for sure. Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah. Now, last time we talked, you were telling me about Secret Sauce. That's your right? Secret Sauce, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
That's your animation studio?
Yep. Yeah. We're doing well also. It's funny because I've kind of I've given the reins to my art director, Jay Lee, who not comics, that Jay Lee.
I was going to say not comics Jay Lee, but another Jay Lee. Go on.
Yeah, the other Jay Lee, which is funny. We always give him a hard time.
He's the other Jay Lee. All right.
Yeah, what's funny is he doesn't even know who the other Jay Lee is. He's in a totally different. He's like, no. And he said to me one time, he was like, "Oh, I finally looked the other Jay Lee up. He's good." I was like, "Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah.
And so are you, Jay. You're good too, Jay." He said, "Oh, thanks." So I've given him the reins over production. They're doing a lot of projects right now. We're doing a lot of projects right now that we're going to this event CTN. It's in Los Angeles. It's Animators Conference in November, which is funny because while the company will be there, I'm going to be at another event called Afrotech, which is I'm pretty excited about. It's sponsored by eBay.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, Bitterroot is going to have an exclusive variant cover coming by eBay. And man, we've got some really exciting news for some other stuff. But I'll be at this event called Afrotech, and it's for Black engineers. And they want to highlight Bitterroot because we have that steampunk aspect in the story, and they wanted to have us come and talk about that and just the fantastical, intertwined with history and how the technology applied to what we're doing in our story, and it should be pretty incredible because that's a whole nother audience. It's like, these
Yes.
guys are guys and girls. They're tech people, but they're not necessarily in what we do in our realm, in our
Sure.
genre. But the crossover is very, it can be very seamless. So I look forward to it.
Understood. And yeah, this is part of what you were saying when we were going to talk about some of the other platforms that you're going to, or audiences, to kind
Uh-huh.
of make them aware of Bitterroot and everything. Are there other initiatives that you want to talk about that you want to continue to kind of expose this to different people?
Yeah, we like I said earlier, we were reached out to by a few professors at historical Black institutions, colleges, Howard University.
Wow.
Um, oh my gosh, Howard University, Morehouse,
Sure.
Spelman,
Wow.
Clark, Atlanta, Tuskegee,
Damn.
my alma mater, Benedict College in South Carolina, and we've got a few others that's on the list there. And I told David and Chuck, I was like, we should just do like a college tour, a
Totally.
Black college tour.
Yeah.
And I was just at an event about a month ago, and if I had 400 copies of issue one, I would have sold them all easily. And it just dawned on me, like, here's an audience that unfortunately, just, how the industry, the infrastructure of the industry doesn't really cater to this audience necessarily. Or at least it's not one of those things where that audience has full knowledge of the accessibility of the industry, the brick and
Sure.
mortar, actually going to a comic shop and so on and so forth. There's, you still got a nice number in that audience, but it could be more, a lot
Sure.
more. And I think that's kind of in a way we've been really we've been wrestling with how do we get something like this to that audience, and then hopefully to some degree get that audience to a brick and mortar.
Sure.
So that's we're still kind of mulling around how to do that, but ultimately we will be making this tour happen probably by the time the trade drops, which will be May, I think.
Okay.
So we've got a little time here to orchestrate a plan of attack. Not to mention of course, we're going to do the traditional venues, the comic store signings. We've got a heap of them coming up here in the next month. We honestly, we're going to have a signing, I think, the day that the issue drops, and we're going to have one every weekend until the end of the year. At different comic venues.
Cool.
So we're just trying to throw the seed or spread the seed as far as possible.
Understood. No, and again, I think that only makes sense. And, it's the same. I used to have this talk with people that were doing pure steampunk comics and this was years ago. And I'm like, are you going to steampunk events? Are you, hitting up steampunk web platforms to let them know what you're doing? Because I'm sure if you reach the right audience, they'll jump all over this. And yeah, no, I think a Black College tour is a fantastic idea. And especially, again, dealing with the backdrop of the Harlem Renaissance. Do you guys see yourself as this, story progresses and stuff? Will you hit other eras from a future standpoint as well, or in terms of where this is going to go?
You're going to have to ask David about that. I think
Okay.
we've been going back and forth about how far do we want to go ahead. I mean, I will say this: we've got some generational stuff kind of, or, we have it it's in the ether, like this generational thing.
Okay.
Someone mentioned, and this by no means is anything official because we hadn't even talked to the guy, the creator. Joe Casey has a book that's coming out that I don't know the name of the book, but it takes place during black exploitation era, the 70s.
Okay. Yeah, the 70s. Sure.
And the main character, a woman of color, and she does something similar to what our characters do. I mean, it's a different story overall, but someone made a comment on another podcast. It would be pretty awesome to see some kind of tie-in with that. I'm like,
a crossover.
Some kind of crossover.
Oh,
now, mind you, that's 50 years later, but it could work.
It's a time travel away. What are you talking about? Exactly.
Man.
Exactly. I'm sure the grandmother could kind of whip up some sort of portal for.
Well, it's not even. Actually, it's not even Granny. I think we have Uncle Enoch, another one of the characters from from the Sangrier family. Uncle Enoch. Where do you guys get a load of him? He's a mad scientist. So we'll leave it. Yeah, he was the kind of the catalyst to implementing the steampunk technology.
Cool.
Because I could share this too, as far as there's different disciplines when it comes to who the roles to play in terms of their missions. You have your hunters, and then you have your those who create the whether it be the medicines or even the tech for them to go and hunt. So there's an interest, and even with that, there's an interesting inner story with one of the main characters, young female by the name of Blink. She's torn about her purpose because she wants to do what the guys are doing.
She wants to hunt. No, I'm glad, and I was going to get into that. That's one of the great things is Blink wants to hunt, but she's kind of, because of that traditional role, is expected to kind of blend the herbs and kind of work on the tech and also work on the formulas, the alchemy of the stuff, and let the men do the hunting. And no, she is not to be denied of both pursuits. Leave it at that, and we'll let people enjoy the issue. But I think that's man. And again, great interpersonal conflict. Good conflict. That's where storytelling comes from, man. Yeah. So and as you say, even within the ranks, different ways of how to address these problems and stuff. So not only in terms of old versus young, but also men versus women and stuff. I think that's great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we like I said, once I saw the overview. I'm sorry, the synopsis. Thank you. The synopsis that David laid out, I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun to create these characters and get this interlocking stories and see where it goes.
Very cool. And again, so you're going to do 5 issues, put out the trade. And, but obviously you're going to get back to it. Do you guys, this is something I always ask Image people is, do you envision a length of this, or would you like this to go as long as you can and sky's the limit and, hoping for 100 issues and beyond?
Well, there's so many different takes on what's considered to be acceptable or a success these days. I think now with, I don't know. I mean, you hear, hey, the way to go is to try to create this epic, Walking Dead kind of, saga with generational stuff. And that's possible. But then, you hear another take on, hey, you want to do something that's a little more finite and, really make an impact and kind of leave it there and just end on that big impact. So I think we'll know exactly where this should go. I think by the end of the first arc.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
we of course we have already planned at least 3 arcs.
Smart. Got it.
We've got that pretty solid. That's set and ready to go. But beyond that, I think even by the first arc, I think we'll have at least a good sense of how far we can take this. I will say this though, I've seen, without putting too much information out there, I've seen where, at least in issue 4, and I think of course it's going to continue in issue 5. There's something that happens to one of the main characters that there's no way in the world we can leave that. We would have to really make the second arc almost about that one thing. You see what I'm saying? And that means we've got a whole nother arc to kind of deal with the even bigger story that we have. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Even just saying that's plenty of room for this thing to go beyond 3 arcs, and it not be, overdrawn or anything like that.
I understand. Well, and also I'll congratulate you too, because I always think this is an important thing, is a really solid first issue that doesn't have to resolve everything, but give you a good story.
Yeah.
And I think you get that. And it's like, when people buy this, they can say, all right, I kind of get a sense of where this is going, with obviously things that will likely surprise, as you're saying, with the 4th issue. But I think I really think it's important to have a good first issue where it's like, all right, I got my money's worth here. And then the question is, do you want to continue the journey or not? And I think you guys succeed in providing that kind of first issue sample that I think people need to get interested in a book and everything. So, yeah, I mean, again, because a lot of times, I don't know, man. It's been a lot of years since, this version of Image has been out there, and I don't think everybody does that with the first issue. And sometimes there's just like, you get that final page like, hey, whoa, here's a big hook. And it's like, yeah, but did you give me enough of a story other than setting up the mystery? And if it's all set up and there's no payoffs, it's like, I don't know. So, I think, like I said, I think you get the feeling of what this book is about, and you give, at least the people that maybe even are like, all right, that's enough. At least, hey, man, I didn't feel like I got gypped by my $4,
Right. So, we definitely, I appreciate that. I mean, we wanted to hit the ground running in the first issue. We didn't want to, load you up with too much information. At the same time, we, like you said, we gave enough to where hopefully you'll come back for issues 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And of course, we know how this game is played. It's, there's so many, that will wait for the trade and things of that nature. Unfortunately, I'm guilty of it. But I do think that, with many of the titles that are out there now, we're striving to make each issue something that would really mean a lot to collect those as well. We're doing something different for the trade as well. So,
cool. In terms of different back matter or whatever.
And I don't even know if it's going to be back matter. It might even be just something totally different.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that. We got a few ideas that we think would really work.
That's excellent, man. That's cool.
We got to give people, and I got to say this too. Even with the single issues, we were talking about the covers. I'm doing a 5-issue connecting cover. So,
cool.
So it's going to be pretty much, whatever you saw in the first issue, from what I sent you, it's just going to be that scene, continued for 5 issues. So, I've done it for Marvel with Black Panther and Luke Cage, and I see my art being used for all kinds of stuff with those spreads. I'm like, you know what? Let me do it for myself. Let me reap the fruits of that labor, fully. So that's pretty much what. Plus, I wanted to kind of do something. I mean, you got Mike Mignola and Bill Sinclair. I didn't even mention. I think did they just revealed Bill Sienkiewicz's issue two's cover.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So, you got all these luminaries in the industry, and I wanted to do something to not get lost in the shuffle. So, let me try to do something to stand out just a little bit there. So
that's awesome, man. No, that's great, and great to hear another classic creator that's coming to work on the book with you and everything. That's wonderful too. And yeah, man, I don't blame you for doing that. And truly, man, I'm very intrigued by the idea of lecturing at the black colleges. I hope that I'm sure that someone will video the any sort of presentation you guys end up doing.
Yeah.
But I hope they please link to it when the time comes. Because, man, I'm telling you, I love what I do. I love that certain conventions are smart enough to put their panels out video wise and stuff like that. But I really I've got a librarian friend who is constantly combing various universities for comic book presentations and stuff. And it's so – thank God for guys like Tom Spurgeon, the comics reporter, who used to work at Comics Journal, because he'll post a lot of that on his blog. But, man, I'll tell you, I just think those things are great and will really serve to preserve what's going on now and for future years and stuff like that. And I think they're important. And I really think, this is a great idea. I think it's going to inspire a lot of current students, and I also think future students as well, doing stuff like this. So I'm glad, and yeah, man, like, just make that stuff available would be my, if you talk to the universities and stuff, just make sure it's like, yeah. Now, you are going to put this out beyond your own website, aren't you? Hopefully,
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, we're hopefully about to embark on some territory. I'll say this too, David. He's pretty well versed in this area. He just I'll make this announcement for him. He just did a TED Talk, and
hey, that's great. And I think he told me that in New York that he was about to do a TED Talk. But go on, please.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's pretty much it. He just did it a few weeks ago.
Is it online? Is it up?
I don't think it's not up yet, but it will be soon. I told him, dude, don't play around, man. Make sure you put that thing up so that we can shout the heavens about that, And
that's great. Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at the comic, and I missed that line where the grandmother tells it's Jinx, right? Jinx is the young, that she's not Bessie Coleman, and it's funny because we have I don't know if you know this, but right by O'Hare Airport, we've got a stretch of road that's called the Bessie Coleman Highway, and I never knew or looked into why it's called Bessie Coleman and everything, and I'm reading now, and I'm like, oh my God. So
there you go, man. This is serendipitous, man.
Because I do. I think I told you I'm doing traffic reporting on the radio now, and so I always am talking about on the Bessie Coleman Highway. It's a little tight right now as you get into the Kennedy. So,
wow.
And I've come to learn now that she was an American aviator, and I'm reading right now the first woman of African American descent and the first of Native American descent to hold a pilot's license. So it makes perfect sense.
Bessie Coleman is pretty awesome. I drew her for a Black History Month. I did like one illustration a day a few years back. It was kind of like, are you familiar with Inktober? Are we?
Oh, of course, we're recording. Obviously, okay. Yeah, and this will be another Inktober episode. I have you, and I got Sean Crystal talking. And I remember, by the way, when you did this. But go on and continue to describe what you're about to describe.
Well, yeah, it wasn't really Inktober, but it was kind of in the same vein. During the month of Black History Month, I did one historical Black figure a day. I just inked, and did a rendition of one per day. And that was Bessie Coleman was one of those one of the the historical figures.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, man, I do. I remember you doing that, and that was incredible.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it
too
was.
much.
Yep,
Too
yep.
much. Well, and again, classic example of the story and how, you're going to drop little hints like that. Is there a Bessie Coleman at all essay plan for Bitterroot?
Well, like I said earlier, there's a lot of things planned. I think we're just trying to make sure that we are doing an incredible story first, and then implementing. And again, there's just even with the event that takes place historically, that's affected this family the most, at least up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
That alone is going to have people discussing that for a while, because it's a real thing. It happened for real. So it's like, wow, yeah.
That's
So
awesome, man.
that alone, I think, is going to be enough to kind of fill at least a few issues, and of course we'll sprinkle in some other things to make sure that those who are really looking for the cool Easter eggs will get their fill.
Excellent. So, what it comes out in November? When does Bitterroot come out?
November 14th. Pre-order.
Great.
I think today's the last day for issue 1. I think.
Oh, geez, man, I'm sorry about that. Then I'm sorry we didn't get to talk before that.
Yeah, I could
for
be
final
wrong.
order cutoffs.
Yeah,
and
for me that order cutoff thing is kind of like, I don't know. I mean, if there's none, if there's not any available, then order. Still order it. You
sure.
can still.
Okay, so don't be dissuaded if we're past if we're past the air quotes final order cutoff.
Right.
If you don't see it, make sure you talk to your store. Make sure they ordered it, and if they didn't order it, though, they will order it.
They will order it, of course. And like I said, the industry, it is what it is. So it's at this point we're doing what we need to do.
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad. And seriously, as I was telling you off the air, I would love to, get David on. I've been trying for a while, and you've been helping me out. We had a great conversation at New York. Was Chuck next to David at New York?
He wasn't there when you were there. I think. Chuck,
okay.
He was only there for one day. But
because there was a gentleman sitting next to David, and I feel like I ignored him, and I'm like, oh God, I hope it wasn't Chuck, and I feel bad if I did.
No, it wasn't him.
Okay, good.
But right, it's funny because you were saying you were trying to get David on. I was going to make a joke and say, well, he's doing TED Talks now, so
that's true. He's too big for me.
He's going to charge you an appearance fee. He wants to.
There you go. Hilarious.
And I will say this though. I mean, it's much deserved. I mean, if anyone should be doing that stuff, it should be him. I mean, I'm always fascinated with his academic viewpoint on just many subjects. He's very knowledgeable on a lot of things, and I think that's something that's really kind of helps me tremendously in my viewpoints, but even also just from a more practical standpoint, just even in my storytelling, there's certain things that he would kind of make me rethink and go in a different direction as opposed to what I originally thought of doing. So, again, I mean, all the accolades or opportunities that he's getting right now is well deserved. He's got something new at DC, just got announced at New York, I think. And of course, he gets a lot of mention when it comes to his stories at Marvel with Power Man and Iron Fist and Luke Cage, even the Nighthawk. I mean,
Nighthawk was great, man.
Yeah, so many people talk about that Nighthawk story. I mean, so I mean, it's only a matter of time. I hope that people will really see what he can do on a major stage, and that's only a matter of time. Even try not to put too much words in his mouth, but Brian Michael Bendis, is like a champion for him. So,
I hear you, man. Yeah, they're
cool.
co-teaching that course.
Yeah,
that they're teaching as well. And and truly on the Bendis tapes, Brian is always talking about David. David's Planet of the Apes stuff is fantastic. And I say that as a diehard Planet of the Apes fan. And we were talking about some of his ideas that he's trying to push towards Boom. And I'm like, yes, please. They all sound great. And I think I had him autograph my Shaft paperback that he wrote.
Oh, cool.
His original story. And I mean, that's the thing, man. We all grew, especially like David's around my age and everything, and it's like probably a little bit younger, but not that much younger. And yeah, man, we all grew up loving the same stuff. I mean, I said that to when Reggie Hudlin was on too. It's like, hey, man, we all love Bruce Lee. We weren't Chinese, but we all love Bruce Lee, man. Like, it's like there was some really great stuff happening, and Shaft was another like amazing cultural moment. And that's why, Blaxploitation, it's like there were really some great ideas going on then. And I love a lot of the original movies. I love things like Black Dynamite that I think was a fantastic parody of that time. And I got to talk to Phil Morris about that and his involvement in that. And not Michael Jai White, unfortunately, but Phil Morris told me about his involvement in that. Was amazing. No, it's good stuff, man. And David's a really smart guy, and he's totally a pop culture guy. So it's hopefully I'm not small enough that he'll. I hope he won't ignore me. I don't think he will. We had a good talk, and as always,
I think you're good.
Okay, I was going to say, if not, I got you and Brian to back me up and go, no, talk to him. I had to get Sal Abenati, Alex Ross's guy, to let Shape Kid know who I was, because they got their new Marvel coffee table book.
Oh,
and I'm like, hey Chip, I'd really love you to do my podcast. And he looked over at Sal. He's like, no, John's a good guy. Talk to John. He's all right. And he's like, oh, well, if Sal knows, he goes, all right, then okay, we'll talk. I'm like, all right. Phew.
Wow. Yeah.
You guys are all my godfathers, kind of, pleading my case for me when I meet new people and stuff. So that's all right.
There you go, man. There you go.
This is great, man. So Bitterroot coming out November 14th. And, man, truly, all of you guys, Chuck Brown, David Walker, Sanford Greene, wonderful work. And great first issue, and truly very excited about the concept. And as always, thank you for making me aware of what you're doing, and I'm always happy to check in. And when there's secret sauce news or any of the other things going on, did the Netflix? I know you didn't have direct involvement with that Netflix animated series that was based on your stuff. How did that go over?
It came and went.
Okay. Hey, man.
Yeah, I know that was one of those things where our studio did the trailer for the initial launch of it, and I did the designs for it, and I honestly don't know where it is right now. I mean, I think, truth be told, once that kind of happened, I started my 1000 project and got that off the ground. That's on Webtoons right now, as a matter of fact.
That's great. Yeah, and forgive me. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going great. It's a little stressful having two full-time, projects, you have to deal with. But it's one of those things where, you have to, you say this quite a lot, but you have to make the donuts. You have to be the one to go in and put in the work. So
man.
I'm just, trying to make that happen right now. I think 9 chapters are available on that platform, on Webtoons platform right now.
That's all free, right? Is it free?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all free. And
that's cool.
And I guess, I don't do this too often, but I am pretty proud of this moment. We won the Ringo Award for Best Webcomic for 2018, 1001 for Best Web Comic Series there for the Ringo Award in Baltimore.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
So that was cool. And, I was like, hey, I guess someone likes it. So it's time
That's wonderful, man.
It's time to keep it going. So, yeah, it's been great.
Well, that's good because, honestly, you, Dean Haspiel, and Riley Brown are the three creators I know off the top of my head that are doing things at Webtoon. And, it's funny, I'm looking at my New York Comic-Con badge, and there was a nice rubber Webtoon, little doohickey that's attached to our badges and stuff. And every year they've got a bigger presence at some of the bigger shows. And Dino Haspiel is really the first guy that really talked to me about that. And it's amazing. So it's out of Korea. And this interesting new digital platform where a lot of you guys and women are putting your comics there. I'm glad to hear that the 1000's getting a good response.
It's one of those things where it's kind of like the music industry, if you will, in general. Albums, CDs, what do you want to call it, MP3, and now it's the streaming aspect of it. This is the streaming aspect of the comic industry, and I know that's from a traditional comic standpoint. That's very it's a little daunting for those who are a part of the brick and mortar, and how do they fit in that regard. And I think the best answer I can give with that is there's always going to be an audience for brick and mortar. It's just like there's always going to be an audience that loves to buy albums or a CD. Sure. It may need to be a little bit more of a boutique aspect of it. I don't know. I mean, unless there are a lot of stores out there that are doing tremendous because they have the ability to cater and evolve in different aspects. It's not just kind of like one direct type of item that they would, have featured in their stores. Sure. But again, with Webtoons, they're just really kind of the wave of where things are going to go, and it's just really fortunate to be a part of that. I've had many, especially this last few major cons, San Diego, New York. I've had a lot of traditional creators. They reached out to me wanting to know more about Webtoons, whereas before it was kind of looked upon in a that's that digital stuff. It's kind of almost derogatory to some degree, but now I think they're really seeing where things are going, and Webtoons is at the forefront of it.
Understood, and I agree, and I think, God, since the very late 90s and the early 2000s, digital comics have carved its own niche in the same way that streaming television has and cable before it. And I think you're right. And I think, again, it's a different audience. So I think that's great. And also that's the place to do, and Dino's doing a great job with like the Red Hook. There's a superhero book, but right. I would say this is the place for other genres to really find different audiences as well. And I'm glad. And again, and it's certainly too, it seems the Korean market in particular, they're the most savvy when it comes to all the countries, all the international countries, and even the United States, when it comes to digital content. I know they were kind of first with a lot of storytelling that they put on cell phones even before tablets. And the Korean audience really took to it and everything. So it's very interesting. You got the French and Belgian Bidet comics that come out, or Bidet, I forget how you pronounce it, but it's Bete. And it's all those beautiful, like, Tintin, and stuff like that. And certainly, England and manga, and obviously coming from Japan. So it's really interesting to see where comics evolve from whatever international platforms. And it's really smart that they've, kind of reached out and gotten so many American creators to come on board. And I see nothing but upside coming in the future with Webtoons. So
Right.
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, and hey, congrats on the Ringo. That's wonderful. And I got to catch up now. Shame on me. I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of that. No, and you're right, man. Again, I think older readers and stuff We think brick and mortar first, and I do go to Comixology for stuff, but I should go to Webtoons more and scan and everything. Because, I mean, I the only time I do is when I know, all right, I'm going to be talking to Haspiel, so it's like, all right, let me catch up on Red Hook. And Riley Brown's had a couple things, like I said, over there as well. So they're the three that come to mind. You guys are the three that come to mind right now.
Oh, thank you. And, and that's, I've had Bitterroot at the forefront for the last 3-4 months. So it has been, one of those things where all hands were on deck with that. So it's one of those things where I just, I'm working on this project, but Bitterroot was so prevalent, it was hard to kind of, balance both of them. But I mean, we're, like I said, we're doing well right now.
That's excellent. And if anything, just again, knowing that I've got Sanford Greene fans listening, if they weren't aware of 1000, I'm glad you bring it up. And there's another place to enjoy your art and your storytelling and everything, man. So that's terrific. So 1000 is over at Webtoons. Check that out. And again, less than a month away, November 14th, first issue of Bitter Fruit. So nice going, Sanford, as always. Truly, thank you. Really, man, it means a lot that you come back and are willing to talk, because I enjoy our conversations. I'm always happy to see you at shows, and I'm thrilled that everything is looking up. So keep up the great work.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Always fun to talk to Sanford Greene. Happy to have him back, and can't wait for my next conversation with him. Check out Bitterroot, coming out this month from Image Comics. I hope you liked today's conversation. It was brought to you by Lightning Strike Comics, the Irish comic book publisher behind such titles as The Life and Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Prince Valiant's 80th Anniversary Magazine, Highlander, the commemorative movie magazine, and many more. They're happy to announce this brand new series, The Phantom Strikes, featuring the art of the great Alex Saviak, who's done incredible work at Marvel and DC, and many Phantom stories as well, and a new original story by David Williams. The Phantom Strikes will also feature contributions by artist Mike Collins, and a lot more. To order copies, you want to visit lightningstrikecomics.com, and retailers can make bulk orders by emailing info@lightningstrikecomics.com. Lightning Strikes also teamed up with the longest-running Phantom comic publisher, Frew Comics, to offer more titles featuring the Ghost Who Walks, including Kid Phantom #1 and the trade paperback of the Phantom's earliest stories for those who came in late. Check it out. You will find great books at great prices, and, of course, they're available at Comixology now. Check it out. Their website again, lightningstrikecomics.com. Thanks so much for listening to Word Balloon today. We've got more great word balloons that I've also released today. A great talk with fellow podcaster and incredible artist to celebrate Inktober, Sean Crystal, and an amazing talk with Eric Esquivel, who is doing a great job on the Vertigo series Border Town. We get the whole story behind that in another conversation that drops today on Word Balloon. As I close out October with 3 episodes, I hope you check them all out. I hope you enjoy the conversations. More great talks to come in the month of November and beyond. So check back at wordballoon.com for more updates. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2018.